Welcome to Leaders inStudio Lisboa. I'm Holly Campanez, Director of Design and Creative Services at Avenue Code. My guest today is Daniele Franco, Product Design Director at Reachdesk. Daniele has a wealth of experience managing global design teams for international tech company and holds multiple postgraduate degrees in the humanities, philosophy, and strategic marketing. Welcome, Daniele.
Thank you. Welcome, Holly.
It's great to be here with you today.
It's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
My pleasure. Let's get right into it. I'm going to ask you a philosophical question off the bat to play to your degrees.
Nice.
What is design to you?
Nice. That's a good one. There's a quote I like to introduce when I talk about design, which is, design it's the art of the faculty of shaping a context and make it functional for the human being eventually. So when you think about that, everything's an act of design, let's say. But I guess the most interesting part is that you really need to know the needs of the human being in order to create a good design of the environment you're trying to shaping. So yeah, I think that would be the best, because I think it's broader than just, the act of crafting, but it's really the act of thinking in an environment and make it functional, make it clear for being used, for being functional for really what you need to actually to achieve.
When you put it that way, it's a very broad practice and discipline. So what brought you in your career to product design specifically?
Cool. I guess it was, I wouldn't expect to work in the design area because I was studying human sciences, so my background is really in human science. It's philosophy, anthropology, art, so poetry as well. But then I started working in a startup in the beginning of my career, and I started discovering this kind of field, which is, the user experience, the design part of the digital products, where you really need to understand human needs and to put the human, the client, the user in the center of your decision in order to build a better product. So in the end, it was a good fit with what I was actually studying, because back in the human science masters and stuff, we were really studying the humans, the behavior. So I just feel there's a lot of complementary things that I brought from my background to the design area, and eventually it's how it started. So it started like really as an early beginner experience when I was in the beginning of my career, and I found like a good angle. It was like a normal evolution in my career. So I'm now leading design teams. But yeah, back in the beginning, it wasn't really what I was expecting to do, but I guess it was a natural evolution of my study. And then eventually when you get to an industry like when you're building products for startups, of course, this is something that you really need, is trying to make your product functional for users. So eventually to connect the technology, the engineering part, with the usability, with the user needs part. So yeah.
We talked a little bit about that we both had backgrounds in fields other than design, and for me also studying literature and theater, I think something I think about often is storytelling, right? We study storytelling, we study narrative and themes and motifs. How does that play a role in digital design, and how does it impact companies trying to reach their audiences?
Cool. I think storytelling today, it's a must. Yeah, it's an asset, but it's a must, because you really need a good story to engage people. There's a lot of noise, a lot of digital noise, a lot of communication. We live in a world full of communication. So if you know how to tell a great stories, of course you have an advantage, because you can have like a different stage in front of your audience. But ultimately for me, it's also important as a leader to inspire the team, right? Because eventually when you're leading a team, you need to tell the story of your team. You need to inspire the people that you have in your team, but also stakeholders. You need to try to tell to stakeholders what you're actually doing with your team, what's the purpose of your team, what's the climax and the story of your team, when is a milestone in your team that you want to communicate. So I guess the art of storytelling, it's really telling the right thing in the right moment to the right audience. And it's an art, it's a technique as well. So this is something that you can really study and eventually get better. But I think it's an asset if you are a leader to tell great stories. If you are a brand, it really puts you in the position where your product is a value, but also what's behind your product, what's your product says, what's the climax and the story of your team, what's the climax and the story of your team.
You know, we talked a little bit about that we both had backgrounds in fields other than design, and for me also studying literature and theater, I think something I think about often is storytelling. What's the story of your product can also be a value, so it increases also the value to the market. And in general, I think it really connects with the audience. It creates this kind of connection where
both feel match, let's say, and able to continue the story together.
It's a very human thing, this, you know, this urge for narrative and to build connection through narrative. But I'm going to ask you something because I've been personally wrestling with this. Do you ever feel that people, whether it be users or stakeholders or the business, they're coming to a strategy session already with a story that they want to tell or a story that they believe, that maybe there are moments that we need to resist storytelling and say, let's step outside of that and put away assumptions? And do you find that that innate urge towards narrative, which can be so impactful, on the other hand, can also be a liability in those moments?
That's an amazing observation because, yeah, storytelling, eventually it's a narrative. So we can have a lot of narratives, but in the end, when we build digital product, the only narrative which makes sense is the narrative from the point of view of the user. So sometimes we build story or narratives based on business. So the protagonist, the business, the protagonist, the revenue, and of course, it's really important. But I guess design, for example, needs to tell the story in the company from the side of the user. So putting the customer in the center of the story, and of course, find a common ground between business and clients. And I do believe the best stories is when we start from different narratives. So we have business, we have technology, we have customers and clients' needs, we have all the needs coming together, trying to dialogue and find a common ground to, in the end, release the product and eventually the storytelling of what we want to deliver with this product. So the common ground between three areas and three different narratives eventually. But yeah, I do believe that a good storytelling, especially between areas, it's based on dialogue and different point of view, which comes together and eventually are able to release the best value to the client, to a business, to tech, for example. Yeah.
Okay, let's go a little deeper on that because you've lived and worked in so many different countries. I know Italy, Portugal, Brazil. I'm sure there are many more I'm forgetting. So I guess I'm curious, when it comes to cultural differences, language differences, those kind of innate things that we believe about life and reality and what it means to be human. How do you navigate that as a director of design in a world that's becoming increasingly more global? What should companies keep in mind, and what do you as a design leader need to keep in mind?
Nice. I guess it's to keep in mind, it's really the importance of the cultures, because we were saying design, it's an act of shaping a context, but sometimes contexts are different. So to build a product in Brazil is different from building a product in Argentina or in the UK, in the US. So the importance of localization, to localize products according to the market where you're landing. And this is for one hand. On the other hand, you also have the importance of being aware of different cultures while you are leading a team. To give you an example, I was there when I was in Argentina. They're really straight away with words. They're really direct to the point. So also my kind of leadership was really straight, direct to the point. While in Brazil, the communication, it's kind of, let's say, softer. So you can't be so straight, so direct, but sometimes you really need to talk more through things. So in order, of course, to respect the cultural environment where you're getting, and to extract the best from it, and to actually to work well, to enjoy it. So, and when you're leading multicultural team from different cultures, I guess from us, from leaders, what it is required is to be really aware of the difference, and not just to act horizontally, like the same tone of voice, the same way, the same behavior, but to really know the difference and appreciate each difference, and try to build also our persona according to different culture, trying to understand what works better for one culture, what works better for another culture, and learn. I guess learning, when it's about culture, learning is the key word. You really need to be open, accept what a culture has to give you, pros and cons, of course, because it's something that you may not be used. So it's really about learning, and from this learning, extract the best that you can. But to be aware of different cultures, the difference that each culture has, I guess it's key today in terms of leading teams and in terms of launching products for new markets.
And I think it's becoming increasingly common to see this sort of multicultural team and geographically distributed teams. So we were talking about how special it is when you get to see your team members in person.
True.
But unfortunately, it's not something that we all can do all the time. So let me ask you, when you welcome a team member from a new country, or even if you're launching a product or a service in a new country, any tips for other leaders out there that you could share for how do you step back and listen and understand?
Nice. I remember once when I was working at Loft in Brazil, we onboard a girl from Mexico. She was the first one in Mexico, so the only one in Mexico. So you can kind of, and she didn't speak that well Portuguese in the beginning, but we decided together to build a brand, let's say. So instead of hiding, sometimes you feel like shy to be the only person from another country, so you try to homologate yourself to another culture. But what we did together was, hey, trying to bring the Mexican culture, trying to really bring this flag here, so you can be the person also helping us in future build our product there. So it was really about creating some moments, informal moments, like coffee break with the team, and sharing cultural interest topics. For example, I remember she prepared a little presentation about her city, about how was living in Mexico, about some cultural festivities that they have. So she was opening our eyes to another country, to another culture, and that was good for her because she found a place to give value, actually to be recognized for her diversity, cultural diversity. And also for us as a team, we were just, traveling in Mexico without leaving Brazil. So it was a great, and you kind of build this connection where you see that the differences are what enrich eventually a team and a product itself in the end.
So you've kind of alluded to this a couple times, but the way you described this, it almost sounded like you were introducing a new character into the story of your team. So this idea of leadership as storytelling and thinking about how do you develop each of these characters. Where did you get this framework of leadership? Is this something you came to over time? Did you have a mentor that taught it to you? Tell me a little bit about the origins.
Nice. I guess this is really about my passion. My passion is storytelling. So I see the world as a story. I see my work as a story, as a cycle, for example. So each story has a climax, has a protagonist, has a hero, has a challenge, has collaborators, etc. So I guess it's really how I try to frame the words that I live. Also because I do believe in the power of stories. They are really logical, so they put things on order. So maybe it's a bias from my background, let's say, but it's really nice the idea of seeing a team as different persona and characters, because again, I guess leadership, it's really about empowering people, but empowering not from an horizontal point of view, where we're just, it's really getting aware of differences, the differences of the talent, and extract the best of each talent. So if you know that a character, let's call it a character, is different from another because it has different tools, different talents, then of course you're demanding different things from one to the other. So, and in the end you have a richer story, and eventually you have people which are ready to solve a conflict, which you can find a common conflicts. For example, when I talk about design, I say, hey, our big objective is to gain visibility in the company. So maybe you have a character, so a person in your team which is amazing with metrics, and then you have another which is amazing communicating. So of course you're not asking for communication to the one good in metrics. You're just trying to use the talent that you have, to empower the talent that you have, in order to then resolve or solve the conflict or the objective that you eventually have as a team.
I've literally never thought about it that way, but I think that is so beautiful and inspiring and just intuitive as a way of operating as a leader. But I want to ask you, thinking about your leadership career, about your trajectory in general and everything you've learned, everything you've experienced, is there one moment that you can point to, like your career as a story? Where is the climax? Something you can point to that you were like, yes, this moment was one of, I was shining through, I was fully expressed, I was being a contribution.
Nice. Well, I have something really fresh in my mind, actually. Last week we have an off-site here in Lisbon, so we were talking a little bit more in the beginning, but we work remotely. And once or twice per year, we have this kind of, meeting where we meet in person. So last week we have people from the UK, from Brazil, from India, from the rest of Portugal joining here in Lisbon. And for me, it was amazing to have these spirits, all the team together, so we really get to know each other, to spend more time, for drinking a coffee and talk about personal stuff. But eventually, I had a chance to represent the design team in a presentation in front of other stakeholders as well. So I do realize that for the team and for me, that was kind of a milestone. It was kind of a moment where, after 6 months, the first semester of working, this is the climax. This is where we are together and we show the work, we show what we've done. That's the part of the story where you're actually telling the story of your team, you're actually representing the team, you're actually showing the amount of work and the quality of the work that we delivered over the last 6 months. And that makes me feel proud, and because I saw that the team was really proud about that, because eventually we built it together. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I was quite proud of it, and I think it represented a milestone for the team as well.
Congratulations. And I know, Reachdesk is growing so quickly and you're working on some really incredible things. So anything you'd like to share about the work you're doing there, or anything that not confidential, but that you can share with us that you, as a team, had to accomplish?
Sure. I think in terms of products, we have an amazing opportunity. It is kind of a new business. We are a 3 years old company, and of course we are a new product. So we have a lot of things to do, especially talking from a design perspective, in order to improve our UX, our UI, the usability, the look and feel of the platform as a whole. So I guess our challenge today is really to give the design team tools and confidence, and the protagonist, talking about storytelling, to really be the owner of this kind of improvement that we want to make in our platform, and to raise the bar of the product itself. So I guess really it will be set the tone of the experience. In order to do that, of course, we needed to solidify our processes. So we are starting, for example, using Jira as a tool for tracking design work and have some metrics. We are starting to define our star metrics as a design team, which is, it's never easy to find metrics on design, but we really need to do our best. Yeah, of course. So we are kind of mapping the metrics we would like to have in our hands, and of course trying to get numbers for fulfill these metrics. So I guess it's if I should set a roadmap until the end of the year, would be the team that set the tone of the experience, meaning telling stakeholders as well, showing to stakeholder which kind of product we want to be eventually in 5 years. So it's really about maybe preparing a vision of the product we want to be. So today we are here, we're a young product, this is how we work, but eventually this is how we can grow and how we should go. So it's really trying to inspire stakeholders and the rest of the company to work eventually to get there.
So Daniele, outside of leading your team and the work you're doing at Reachdesk, you also mentor a lot of young designers and students, don't you?
Yeah.
What is a common thing that you see in terms of mindset or advice that you find yourself giving often?
Nice. I guess in the beginning, it's really about, there are a lot of fears. So sometimes when you're younger and you want, for example, to migrate from a career to another, it's never easy to do this step. There's a lot of uncertainty. So it's really about in the beginning to empower the person and try to put away the fear that the person have, and try to show the long-term roadmap. So hey, yeah, you can achieve, you can go, you can arrive here. But if you're blocked by your fears, then eventually it's gonna be harder. So it's really trying to understand which is the fear which is blocking you the most, trying to, in a rational and emotional way, to take it out, and then leading, helping growing the evolution on their career. So yeah, I guess in the beginning it would be really about confidence, and try to really get rid of the fears that sometimes unlock us to the next step.
I'm reading and thinking a lot about fear in the role of development, and I'm curious your take on it. Is it something that you live with and act anyway? Is it something that you face and try to dispel? What's your philosophy of fear?
I guess fear is an amazing tool if we know how to use it. I guess to give you an example, before joining Reachdesk, to join a company which was English speaker first, I had fear in the beginning because, you know, when I lead team, I'm Italian, passionate, and I'm not designer in terms of crafting as a background, but I guess my strength it's on words. It's about storytelling. So it's really about words. So I really use the language as a tool. I speak other languages, but you know, I didn't speak English on a common basis before Reachdesk. So in the beginning, I was like, I don't know if I can lead a team and inspire a team with a language which is now, you know, my common language, the language I'm used to use for telling story and stuff, because I really need the language as a tool for inspiring people. But eventually, that was like one of the reasons when I joined Reachdesk, because I said, yeah, I really want to prove myself that I can do it, and then I can really inspire people with a language. I don't feel comfortable now, but of course in 6 months, I'm going to be comfortable with that. So if we can use the art of vulnerability and also say, hey guys, I need to improve on that, give me time, I'm working on that, and use the fear as an engine for what you want eventually to achieve, I think it's an amazing tool. But if, on the other hand, if you are blocked by our fear, we step back. We step back and you don't grow, and eventually you will live with some regret, thinking about how could it be if one day, if I, right? So I really, in life, my philosophy, it's really try to analyze your fear and try to use it as an engine for your next step.
I think what I love about what you just shared is that your fear for you, it kind of points you back toward what you love and where you are strong, which is this language and the storytelling and, you know, using the passion to communicate and bring out the best in other people. So that strikes me as something really valuable about fear as well, that it tells you something, yes, something you're afraid of, but it also tells you something that you know you're strong, that you can shine.
It is true. Actually, the fear, in terms of emotion, they help us. They are protectors. They are our guardians. The fear, for example, of falling is eventually because we don't want to die. It's primary protection feeling, which is good because eventually the fear wants to protect something that it's worthy for you, right? And it's true. If you're good at something, you want to protect the thing that you are good at. But eventually, this is a good point because the fear can also be the barrier, right? So fear barrier. So if you work on that, you can expand what you're good at and recognize that, yeah, the protector maybe can be a little bit forward and set the bar to a next step, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned, and I'd like to go back to this, you mentioned that, you know, you are not the craft of design, of course, we know it's so important, but for you, your background, you're not coming at it from a visual perspective or from UI perspective per se. So I'm curious, you know, when you think about design broadly, and we looked at this a little bit in the beginning of our conversation, but what are the skills that a good designer must bring to the table, and how do they contribute in building an organization or creating an impact?
Nice. I guess nowadays, it's really about problem solving. We are building, in general, in the market, we are building the complex products. We have complex problems all around the world, global problem. So we need to build global platforms. And when you think about that, it's not really about the visual part, which is of course important, and it's fundamental to have good designers, different talents in your team. So you have the guy amazing in the visual, the guy is amazing in the discovery part, but in the end today, I guess, the common ground should be able to solve problem, which means understand the complexity that you're acting, understanding the business, and be a strategic thinker. So you eventually, know how to solve a problem in the best way in the context where you're acting, so in the company where you're acting, because each company, each organization has, its own way to solve problem. And so if you're a good problem solver, you can read all the situation, analyze situation, and find the best way in the context where you're acting. So I would say that the greatest tool or skill today, it's really about problem solving, which is eventually it's the core of a design system process. It's really about understanding the problem and solve a problem. But I guess the quality of a design, it's really how you do that.
I love that. All right. this does not follow our narrative structure, but it's just there in my mind. So I want to come back to something you said earlier and ask you, in this framework of leadership, of thinking about the narrative and the team, the story of your team, how do you avoid making individual people villains in that story?
Nice. I guess it's trying to build a common hero, which is eventually, let's say, the design team. So if you give too much, I mean, you shouldn't create personal heroes, but like a common hero which all the person represents. So all the person are a part of a unique character, the most important character, which is eventually, for us in this moment, it's the design team, it's our hero, and as design team, who is our challenge, our villain, let's say. So, and I guess it's really the villain, it's in general the kind of problem or challenges that the team feels. So today it would be, for example, visibility, it would be raise the bar of our product. So this is how we're trying to not make someone the villain, and also not to build particular heroes, because otherwise you're gonna have like ego fights, you know, because everybody wants to be the hero of the story. So if you create let's say a common hero, and you feel like, as product designer, you feel like you're part of this persona, you're building this hero. I think you're all on board. You're all on board with the same culture, the same spirits, the same mindset as well. So that would be, I guess, the trick.
I love that. I love that. All right. I think that covers everything and a little bit more, but are there any final thoughts that you'd like to offer for other design leaders, or we have a lot of other leaders in tech that participate and watch the series as well. So any final words you'd like to share?
Nice. I think the final word would be, I guess today, now in the moment we are living, as design team, I think we have a challenge to really put design a position where of importance in the company. All design leaders are working on that, of course, to give more responsibility to the design team, to be more part of a business conversation. So it would be really a push for us to be really more business driven without losing, without losing our core value, which is bringing the human being, the clients, the customer in the middle of conversation, but being able to articulate this discussion and be really strategic thinker in order to really achieve design, a design team core in the organization. So I guess it will be the natural maturing of a design area in the market will be to be really more into business, to the business C-levels, and able to have this kind of conversation with the C-level stakeholders as a whole.
Beautiful. All right, we had some great insights today, from centering the voice of the user, speaking to the business, creating the story of your team. Thank you so much, Daniele. It's been a pleasure.
Holly. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.